Board of Trustees Candidates Forum. My name is Peter Winchell. I am the Executive Director of Communities and Schools Bay Area and Education Division Chair for Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. The mission of Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce is to be champions for business success and quality of life in our community. One way the Chamber fulfills this mission is by supporting Clear Creek ISD. A successful school district is vital to the quality of life in a community. It also supports economic success, ensuring a highly educated workforce. Hosting this candidates forum every year serves as a tool to inform the business community and area residents about the people wanting to lead our school district and keep it moving in the right direction. Tonight's forum is being broadcast on www.clearlakearea.com and I-45 Now. Thank you, TJ Alds, and happy birthday, TJ. I would like to begin this evening with a prayer and a pledge to our flag. So please join me. Blessed are you, Lord, divine source of all wisdom and truth. Tonight, we hear from 8 candidates for the Clear Creek ISD Board of Trustees. These individuals have been called to educational leadership in our community. Lord, open our ears this evening to hear the message of our speakers and call us all to action. Give us the courage and grace to do your will in response to what happens this evening. Lord, divine teacher, help us to recognize you tonight in the message we hear, in the conversation we share, and in our lives shared in common. And may the blessing of God, his peace and love rest upon our forum, our presenters, and all those in attendance tonight. Please join me in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic. Now I would like to give recognition to some of the people we have in our audience, although you can't see them. I would like to first introduce to you Chamber President and CEO, Cindy DeWeese. We also have Chamber Vice President, Barry Sweeney, and our Government Affairs Division Chair, Brian Freedman. Thank you. Now, I also want to thank our sponsors, the City of Nassau Bay and Texan Bank. And now to the important people here. I would like to introduce to you the candidates in alphabetical order and by position. From District 4, Jeffrey Larson. Also from District 4, Paige Rander, who is the incumbent. From District 5, we have Jay Cunningham, who is the incumbent, and Christina Parizo. For at-large position A, Jonathan Cottrell. Also at-large position A, Michael Creedon. At-large position A, Marlene Montesinos. And finally, at-large position A, Kevin Oditt. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator for this event, Dr. Glenn Freedman from EduSafe Systems Incorporated, who will review the format and start the proceedings. Dr. Freedman.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. And thank you, candidates. Thank you for civic-mindedness. Thank you for your willingness to participate in this wonderful election, wonderful school district. The next minute or two, I'd like to review the way that we will conduct the forum this evening. For all of you, so that you know, we have 4 goals here for the Clear Lake Area Chamber Forum. First is to introduce the candidates to the community. Second is to provide a fair, impartial forum for voter information. Third is to inform voters about the candidates' views on issues that affect the Creek ISD and our community, and also to encourage you to get out and vote. The questions tonight have been framed to elicit responses reflecting how each one of the candidates would act as a board member or about the issues that candidates would be expected to know about. For background information about the candidates, we encourage you to read about each one of them. Clear Creek ISD has made that information available on its website. Community Impact newspaper has also interviewed the candidates, and I'm sure they also have websites and other social media outlets. Now to the forum. Keep things moving and to hold everyone's interest, here's how we'll conduct the forum. First, we'll have introductory comments, 60-second opening comments by each of the candidates. Then the second part will be what we'll call hot topics. Candidates will each be asked 2 questions about critical issues facing CCISD's Board of Trustees. These 60-second responses will feature a different question for each one of the contested races. Third, we'll have a lightning round. Each candidate will pick a number between 1 and 20, and I will read the question corresponding to that number. Different question for each candidate. Ms. Sweeney will give a card with the question. Mr. Alds will post the question on the screen for the audience to see. And each candidate will have 30 seconds to answer these questions. Next section is called bread and butter. And this section deals with the actual role, the bread and butter, if you will, of being a school board member. Again, 2 rounds, 60-second responses, each contested position having their own question. Fourth, we'll have another lightning round. And finally, we'll have closing comments, 60-second closing comments in the reverse order in which the opening comments were presented. Candidates will be notified when they have 15 seconds left to wrap up their responses with a little flag that President Deweese will wave. At the end of their time, there'll be a red flag and a buzzer with a timer that they all have access to see. With that, it's time to get started. And let's start with our opening comments. We will start with position 4, and we will go in alphabetical order. And Mr. Larson, your opening comment, if you would, please.
Parizo Public High School was not voted for and heard all 3. So I am very impressed with the school district, and it's got a great tradition of excellence in education. I wish to continue that. I also, however, am concerned that we need to reflect the values of our voters, our taxpayers, and our parents, and that's what I hope to bring to this trustee board.
Thank you. And may I ask all of you to get close to the microphone when you speak? Ms. Rander, your opening comment, please.
Thank you, Dr. Winchell, Dr. Freedman, and the Chamber. I appreciate this opportunity to be with you today. I'm Paige Rander, incumbent candidate for District 4 position. I've been on the board for over 10 years, and to this position, I bring my professional experience as both a human resources supervisor and a media relations manager in a past life. I have one son that graduated from the district because I always like to say I have 40,000 students that I care about every day with every decision that I make. I'm very proud of the things that have changes and things that we've seen go on in the district over these past 10 years and longer. The experiences that I've had are key to what we can bring to this community, and I look forward to sharing with you the values that we share with the community and making it a great place to live. Thank you.
Cunningham.
Good evening. I wanted to thank Dr. Freedman for moderating. Wanted to also recognize TJ Alls for broadcasting with us, Cindy DeWeese for being the host as well. My name is Jay Cunningham. I'm the incumbent of District 5. Many of you have known me over the 14 plus years that I've volunteered as a volunteer, coach, parent, advocate, and more importantly, the last 6 years as the trustee for District 5. I have enjoyed my time on the board. I look to continue to help our students excel and recognize all of their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with everybody tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Parizo.
Thank you, Dr. Freedman, and thank you, Dr. Winchell and Cindy and TJ for being here and for broadcasting this forum. My name is Christine Parizo. I'm running for the District 5 position, everything west of 270 and south of the creek. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 children in the district, a CCISD volunteer, and an education advocate, and I'm in this race to be a strong voice for the children, families, and taxpayers in this district that the district serves. I'm here to advocate for success for every student. That includes a high-quality education for every student that reflects a teacher-driven curriculum and high standards, keeping schools open for brick-and-mortar learning and basing our safety protocols on sound science and expert recommendations, accountability to our taxpayers so that we are improving our long-range planning for maintenance and for facilities upgrades and avoiding monolithic bonds every few years. And finally, to bring transparency to the board so that taxpayers know where their money is going and so that parents and students can easily find and understand CCISD policy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cottrell.
Thank you, Dr. Freedman, Dr. Peter. Am I loud or what? The Chamber of Commerce, and happy birthday to TJ. My name is Jonathan Cottrell, and I'm a product of this community and this district. I'm a father of 3 children who are students here in the district. And for the last 10 years, I've been an active volunteer with many organizations, many nonprofits that support this community. I've been a PTA president at my kids' school. I've been a member of the board of directors at the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, and done my best to advocate for our education system, the K through 12 in Austin, for the last 10 years. I believe education is the pathway to upward mobility for these kids, and I want to do my best to be part of that and influence it the best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Creedon.
Thank you, Chamber, for the opportunity to present my credentials. My name is Michael Creedon. I'm running for the at-large A position. Married to Sherry for over 30 years, who is a former McWhorter teacher. I've got 3 very active teenagers in CCISD, and there is never a dull moment in the Creedon household. Resident of League City for over 20 years. I'm a graduate of a West Point, Georgia Tech, and the U.S. Army War College. I've spent the last 30 years toiling with ExxonMobil as a manager. I'm also a colonel in the United States Army Reserves. I'm a member of the PTAs for Seabrook and Clear Creek High School, and I was a former hockey coach. Yes, there is hockey in Texas, as well as a former League City fireman. But that's my story. And that's a product of a quality public education, and I want to help write the story of 42,000 students. And I sure hope you'll give me the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos.
Good evening. My name is Marlene Montesinos, and I want to thank, first of all, the Chamber for putting this event together, Dr. Freeman, Dr. Winchell for being here and making this possible. I am a product of actually bicultural, both South American and North American citizenship, which I bring to the table to enrich the experiences that we will be having. I am a firm believer in education, which is the road to success. My parents left me this as a legacy, and this is what I want for the students in CCISD. I overcame difficulties and obtained a PhD and a Juris Doctorate. And I don't say this out of ego, but out of humility and thankfulness to my parents and to God, because only through this have I been able to open doors. So I want to make sure that we are able to offer this to the CCISD. Also, I have been in the past involved in various chambers positions, including being president of the Baytown Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It is my goal.
Thank you. Mr. Oditt?
Yeah, thank you to the Chamber for hosting this important event. I'm Kevin Oditt, and I'm running for CCISD trustee at large. So I'm the newest resident for CCISD in the panel here. And that's because I just retired from the Coast Guard in October after 28 years of military service. So I had the opportunity to finish up my career here as a commanding officer in Southeast Texas, where I was responsible for the largest operational unit in the Coast Guard. I oversaw 17 units and 1,100 people, and I also had the privilege of overseeing one of the largest and most successful responses the Coast Guard ever had for Hurricane Harvey. So I think that my leadership skills and experience will allow me to bring a fresh, unique perspective and way to actually solve some of the challenges I think we're going to face here in CCISD. I'm also very successful in overseeing large organizations and that have competing demands, and I know how to make tough decisions. And again, those are decisions we'll face for sure here in CCISD.
Thank you all very much. Before we continue, I must say that one of the candidates for position 5, Mr. Esthay, has chosen not to be here this evening. Well, we started the round with question for District 4. So let's start this next round with District 5, and that would be Ms. Parizo and Mr. Cunningham. And here's your question, and it's coming to you now. The topic is the pandemic. What do you consider to be the best source of information to inform school board actions to take during the pandemic? The CDC, TEA, local doctors and experts, local educators, social media, print media commentators, other school districts, or someone else? And why have you chosen the person or the group that you have chosen? Ms. Parizo, your thoughts?
Well, we've seen the CDC walk back recommendations too many times, so I would not use the CDC's recommendations as gospel at this point. I think the best source of information regarding safety protocols during the pandemic is to look to our local doctors who have been treating COVID patients and who have been treating other ailments as a result of the pandemic. We should be looking to local experts who have seen what the effect is on our community. They are the best ones to provide information that we can act on and that we can trust.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cunningham.
Being on the Safely Reopened Committee this past summer, we incorporated a wide range of folks in order to help us come up with the regulations, protocols, etc., that has allowed us to remain open this past school year. So these folks are our local doctors, community members, nurses, health officials, as well as looking at the TEA guidelines based on CDC recommendations. So I think when you're dealing with a global pandemic, too much information is not enough information. So you need to incorporate all the resources, take those into account. And I'm just thankful that the district reached out and had 50 plus, community members involved.
Thank you. The next question will be our at-large candidates. And we will start with Mr. Creedon. And the question for the at-large group is as follows. The pandemic has led to serious disruptions in learning for many students, with many educators concerned that there are students who will fall behind academically. How should CCISD's Board of Trustees respond to this issue?
It's an outstanding question. Thank you for asking it. Resiliency. I think the board should help develop policies that will drive resiliency throughout all of our 45 school systems, so that our students can learn the skills to adapt and overcome what the pandemic has done. And second, I do think there needs to be a form of a catch-up policy that allows students who have, for whatever reason, not been able to stay up with their studies, whether remote learning or other barriers, the opportunity to catch up for the grade standards, whether that's additional evening hours, whether that's different additional after-hours programs, whether that's summer programs, some method and means by which they can retain or regain any lost time due to the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, the same question to you.
Yes, I think we should continue to be proactive as we have been in the CCISD board. I believe that although there are certain areas that need to be more specifically being taken care of, such as the disadvantaged areas where even though there is an internet connection, the parents may not be in the capability of being able to either help them out with the internet or even in the subject matter. So I would suggest that one of the areas that we could look into is having a person that would actually go to their homes and would work with them and be able to provide them with a better ability to stay academically on point. With the rest of the population, I think we should still continue to do as well as we have been doing at this point.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Oditt.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, this is an important question, but I think what we found out is that virtual learning is not nearly as effective as in-person learning. So we absolutely need to do everything we can to get kids into school. Not only do we learn that the kids need to be in school because that's the more effective way to learn, but we also know that mental health issues are a challenge, and we need to be able to provide those services and address mental health issues. People are social people, so we need to be interacting and having those relationships at school. So I think, though, that we need to learn from the lessons and actually build on the virtual learning. I think there are still going to be some kids that are going to have to learn from home because either they are at risk or somebody in their family is at risk. So we need to build off of what we've learned over this past year to provide a more effective virtual learning environment. But I would also support some mechanism for these kids to catch up, whether it be through summer school or other options. And we should explore every option possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cottrell, your response.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, the pandemic caught everybody off guard, and at first it was a lot of reaction and safely reopening committees came through with what their recommendations were. What we need to do, in my opinion, is we need to listen to the students, listen to the teachers, listen to the parents, find out what's working for their homes. Clear Connections has proven to some families to be a good, viable option, and it could be an option for them going forward. But what the district needs to do and the trustees need to do is remind that we need the funding that's there and that's necessary. The 2021 bill, HB 3, is going to provide some of that funding back to the districts that they lost, improving the air-conditioned units in schools, improving the custodial services, but making sure that we have the resources, and we need to work with Austin to get the money that's due. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to position 4. We'll be starting with Ms. Rander. And here's the question. Clear Creek Independent School District launched its virtual learning platform in earnest during the pandemic. Recently, the district announced the Clear Connection capability will continue. In your opinion, how should the district employ this capability moving forward? Ms. Rander.
Thank you. It was exciting to hear the plan that the district put in place for the board to vote on regarding virtual learning. We have learned, based on the numbers and how they flowed over the past year, that there are some families that are benefiting from Clear Connections. So I believe strongly that this is a good opportunity, so provided we have the support from the education agency, TEA, and not only by giving us the thumbs up to do it, but also the financial support to do it. But it's not for everybody, and it's an individual decision. Students have to, families have to weigh it, and you see questions going out there. Is it good for me? How's it going for you? Well, you've got to make that personal decision. Talk to people and weigh it out. But I think that the plan that we have proposed and voted on, I believe strongly, and I think that'll work for those families.
Thank you very much. Mr. Larson.
Well, one of the things we've learned is that remote learning isn't going away, and that's probably a good thing. Every family should be able to choose the educational options that suit their needs the best. And that's why, for some families, remote learning for connections is going to stick around. Everybody else should be either in the brick and mortar schools, or there should be a combination of the two. And one thing that we're is that it would probably be best if clear connections was more of its own entity. So instead of having clear connections or clear rates or clear connections or clear rates, whatever, that it had its own identity, and that the kids would go through 4 years of clear connections.
Thank you very much. We're ready for our second hot topic. That topic is school funding. And this time we'll be starting with the at-large position A. And Dr. Montesinos, it's your turn.
Let me just have a minute to read it. I'm sorry.
Yes, I will read it, and you'll have a chance to read it as well. The topic is school funding, and the question is as follows. Arguably, one of the most important education bill in the last 20 plus years was House Bill 3, passed thanks to the leadership of our very own Senator Larry Taylor in 2019. Every school district in the state of Texas has been affected. What have been the key impacts on Clear Creek ISD?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And this is actually a very extensive bill, and it carries 4 major policy areas. The first one is, of course, that it increases the teachers' compensations, and it has to do with the staff, and the compensations. Actually, CCISD was able to provide it with a higher percentage even than the state was recommending. So that if we, depending on whom we listen to, it's between 10 to 11.5 billion dollars that the state was allotting. And CCISD has been very generous with the compensation for the teachers. The second point, policy point in there, is the focus on learning and improving student outcomes. So we have the early Ks, we have the improving college and careers, and the special.
Thank you. Oditt?
Yes. No, thank you. I'll be honest, the summary alone for that bill is 50 pages long. I'm not sure that many people understand exactly what is in it. So I don't think that the school district has done an effective job of communicating to lawmakers the impact, or at least not that I have seen or am able to find. So I think the first challenge to the school district and school board would be to actually identify where there are gaps, where we can achieve the metrics or requirements in this bill, whether it be professional development, whether it be the unfunded mandates that if the state is not going to support us like this, or even the additional testing requirements as they adjust the standards for kids and learning, which we all agree with. We want to meet higher standards. So I think it'd be critical for the school district, for the school board, to identify a group and be able to communicate effectively what the gaps are.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Cottrell.
Thank you. So this is a separate bill than the one I mentioned before, HB 319. I actually remember going to Austin regarding this bill at that time. And yes, unfunded mandates was a concern at the time, because there was so much in it that would be required of the districts, and really an unfunded mandates when Austin tells us you have to do this, but they don't give you the money to do it. And that was a big concern. But in this bill, there was about $6.5 billion for public education. There were lots of great programs. There was a lot that came into it that basically wanted to provide the resources into the district. But the biggest impact as well was also our taxes. With this bill, they also said that we could not charge more than 93 cents on our property taxes. And so today that's what it is, actually 93 cents per 100. So at this point, the district is, being funded by public, property taxes, and that also affected that as well.
Thank you. Freedman?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say House Bill 3 is certainly an aspirational piece of legislation that was passed, and its impacts have not fully taken place in the district simply because the funding has not come. But from an aspirational sense, what the impacts will be some awesome tools for attracting and retaining teaching talent, which is cornerstone to the educational system at CCISD. Certainly pre-K programs and affording students the opportunity to stay an additional year in elementary school will also be key impacts for some of our community. Increased standings for reading and science will be a benefit for preparing our students for future and aggressive learning plans. So presently it's aspirational. Its impacts are not fully felt yet because the funding has not been made available. And we look forward to it because it's really going to make a difference with our teaching talent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's time now to move to a question for the District 4 candidates. Mr. Larson will be starting with you this time. And the question is as follows. Citizens are often confounded by the complexity of the state funding model. The heart of the model rests on the two foundational sources of funds, the maintenance and operating fund and the interest and sinking fund. What do you understand the source of money to be for these funds, and how has this specifically affected Clear Creek ISD and its funding?
Well, ultimately, the source for all these funding is the taxpayers. The fundings come from three sources: federal, state, and local. Your local property tax, of course, is a big part of this. Another big part comes from the state of Texas. And there's a bunch of federal funding that is passed through the state of Texas to the local school districts. So when you pass a bond, that is generally, that goes toward your interest and sinking fund. And the other, year to year, there's the maintenance and operating fund that basically pays for the teacher salaries and such of that nature. How does this affect the CCISD? Well, because all that money isn't raised locally, CCISD has to maintain a presence in Austin and needs to work with the state government to ensure that it's properly funded.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rander, the same question to you, please.
When you think about what affects CCISD on a day-to-day basis, that would be basically the maintenance and operations. And that is, the majority of that is from the tax base. Unfortunately, the state is supposed to be putting in it's supposed to be putting in its share of what we raise. It goes to Austin, but all of that money doesn't come back to Clear Creek ISD. So the district is supporting 74 or so percent, and the state is it's for a visual. It's going like this. It should be like this, where this is what CCISD puts in, and this is what the state puts in, and that's not happening. And we keep getting promises of changes towards that, but we haven't seen it. We had some gains with House Bill 3 that you heard about earlier, but we could afford to see more. And it doesn't pay for new schools that are address growth or the things that there are certain things we just can't put in from.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question in the school funding category for the candidates from District 5 will be starting with Mr. Cunningham. Clear Creek Independent School District has long used a budget building process that begins with a set of budget assumptions. What are some of the budget assumptions that you think are especially critical for the upcoming 2021-2022 budget?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Freeman. Out of our $380 million budget Roughly about 85% of that is already spoken for in terms of our M&O, M&O, our maintenance and operations. So that's to run the district, keep the lights on, et cetera. So what you're looking at is running the rest of the district, all of the programs, all of the extracurricular activities, things of that nature, through that other 15%. So we always look at our priorities, and we deem those, and we work with our team of 8 in order to come up with those budget priorities and assumptions.
Thank you. Ms. Parizo, your response, please.
I think the biggest thing that we need to assume for this year is less funding. We still don't know what the effects of the pandemic will be on our tax revenues. Currently, CCISD is running at a deficit, not as much as originally projected, but still at a deficit. We need to make sure that we are protecting all student-facing positions, especially anything having to do with special services. And we need to make sure we're keeping all dollars in the classroom and look for efficiencies elsewhere. That could be renegotiating contracts, making sure that we're not spending gratuitously, and working with our community partners to provide services. I spoke with a faith leader just last month who said all they need is to be invited in, and they can provide school supplies, they can provide counseling services, they can provide special services. And I think our partnerships with community leaders and faith leaders are going to be extremely important in the coming year as we face funding cuts.
Thank you all very much. And that completes that round. It's now time to get started on a lightning round. Lightning rounds are just 30 seconds long. We will start with Mr. Cottrell. We will go through through the at-large, then District 4, then District 5. Ms. Parizo, then we'll turn right around with you getting 2 questions and go back around the other way. These are 30 seconds. I have 20 questions here. Each one of the candidates will pick a number between 1 and 20, and that's the question he or she will get to respond to. So with that, Mr. Cottrell, which number have you chosen?
Alex, I'll take 5.
Question number 5. Over the next 3 years, should Clear Creek ISD's STEM program be changed in any way? How and why?
Good question. So STEM is ever changing. The best thing that they can do with STEM is continue to reach out to our community partners through the science, technology, engineering, and math programs. NASA collaborate with our local nonprofits like the Clear Creek Education Foundation and find that best path forward through listening and learning with the collaboration.
That's why it's a lightning. Mr. Creedon, will your number please?
7, please.
Question 7. Over the next 3 years, should Clear Creek ISD's elementary and secondary physical education programs be changed in any way? How and why?
No, I do not think so. I think stability in our physical education program is what's required at this time. We've gone through a significant amount of change with the pandemic, a lot of stress and duress. I think our existing elementary and secondary physical education programs should be held constant until we work other pressing matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, your number please.
13.
I'm sorry, 13? Question 13. What is the difference between a charter school and a private school?
Well, the charter school has been a place where they get subsidies, where they're able to go and do some of the learning that they're not able to get in a public school or in a private school, but are able to get it through the charter school based on assistance from financial assistance. And the private school pretty much is a place where they're able.
Thank you. Mr. Oditt, your number, please.
Number 8.
Number 8. What are the implications of Clear Creek ISD's changing demographics for the district's strategic planning?
I think that the district always has to be planning for the future and looking to the future. So first off, I think that we need a strategic plan. Right now, I think that the strategic plan, if anybody in here has read it, is very aspirational. So I would suggest we get a strategic plan first. But I think that the core purpose of and mission of the school district is to educate our children. So I don't think that it's going to change significantly, but we do need to be identifying those new communities and make sure that we're able to address their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, your number, please.
Number 1.
Oh, number 1. What programmatic improvements would you recommend regarding special education?
There's no substitute for more parental involvement in special education. That beyond everything else. Certainly, we need to continue the funding where it is. The special education parents have formed a community, and they gave us wonderful input, and we should be working very closely with them.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Rander, which number, please?
2, please.
Number 2. Here's your question. What programmatic improvements would you recommend regarding English as a second language?
To continue what we're doing right now, possibly even expanding it, where we add elementary campuses to our language program, and the immersion of both the students who are interacting with each other in both languages and bringing those students with where English is their second language and giving them the opportunity to learn from those English speakers who are learning Spanish, or possibly even adding another language to our district.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, a number, please.
Let's go with 10,
Number 10.
please. Thank you.
An elected school board is responsible for district governance. The superintendent and his staff are responsible for district management. Why is this an important distinction for the community to understand?
This is very important. The school board is in charge of policy. They're in charge of making sure taxpayer dollars are spent judiciously. And lastly, they're to educate or to advocate for public education. The superintendent, his role is to make sure that policy is carried out throughout the district and to run the day-to-day operations. So the board has that 30,000 foot level. The superintendent has that day-to-day level.
Thank you very much. Ms. Parizo, your number, please.
12.
Number 12. And here it comes.
Thank you.
Agree or disagree, and why? Charter schools, as innovative organizations, should not be bound by the same rules as public schools.
I actually agree with that statement. Charter schools are serving a very specific population, not necessarily the same students that would thrive within a public school. But that said, if CCISD is providing a high-quality education to every single student in the district, then it has nothing to worry about charter schools, whether or not they are bound to the same or different rules.
Thank you. And you're in that lucky seat in which you get to go one more time. What number would you like now?
14.
Number 14. And here it comes. Clear Creek Independent School District has implemented a community-based accountability system. Please describe for the audience what this is and why such an instrument is important.
CCISD's Community Accountability System is CCISD's own measurement of how well it's succeeding at educating its students. However, I think it's flawed because when people are looking to buy a home for a place to raise their children in, they're not looking at CCISD's Community Accountability System. They're looking at TEA ratings. They're looking at the hard metrics that are objective across the state. And so it's important that we are working with TEA, not against them, to improve the way that they rate our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, your next number, please.
I'm going to go with 16.
Number 16. And here it comes. Another agree or disagree, and why. Clear Creek Independent School District should implement routine mental health screening for all high school students to anticipate or address health or safety issues. Agree or disagree, and why?
I agree. The pressures that our students go through on a daily, whether it's grades, whether it's social, economical, etc., those all are putting outside influences and pressures that a lot of our students haven't dealt with before. I'm proud that the district a couple of years ago added to our counseling staff to specifically address the needs of our social, emotional learners.
Thank you. Ms. Rander, your next number, please.
20.
Number 20. Here it comes. A parent blasts you personally on social media. In your opinion, what's the most appropriate response?
I wouldn't reply on social media. I would most likely reach out to that parent. If it was a specific blast at me, I would approach them, find a way to approach them to understand exactly where their issue is, and then help them navigate the right place, the right person to help them with perhaps if it's an issue. But if it's directed at specifically at me, I would take it to heart and understand, but I wouldn't take it personally.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, your next number, please. Number 3. Here it comes. What programmatic improvements would you recommend regarding students who are identified as gifted and talented?
More flexibility. And specifically, I recall my own experiences with my daughter. And as far as getting the classes that you need to move forward is sometimes difficult. And it is due to rules imposed through the GD program. I think if we took a more flexible approach to dealing with those students and treated them more as individuals, not that they don't, but even more so, that would be a move in the right direction.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Oditt, your time up, and what number would you like?
1.
Number 1's been taken.
What's the next one down, lowest?
Number 4?
4 it is.
Okay, and here it comes. Over the next 3 years, should Clear Creek ISD's career and technical education programs be changed in any way? How and why?
This is a great question. I would argue that now it doesn't need to be changed. It doesn't need to be changed. It needs to be expanded, and I think have a greater emphasis placed on it. I think our technical trades are important. I'm a senior vice president with the company, terminal company on the ship channel, and we're hiring a lot of people that are not going to college. So I think we need to provide opportunity for them, which is probably the majority of the students or a significant number that are not going to be going to college. So we need to provide them with opportunity and the right skills to succeed.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, your number, please.
I don't know what number is. I cannot see that far.
6.
6, 9, 17, 18, 19, 15, 11.
Okay, let's go with 15.
15.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
A local group asks you to speak to its business members about, quote, school choice. What would you tell them?
This is a question that I would have to inquire a little bit more on. And I have to be transparent, and when I don't know something as well as I would like to, I will say so, and this is a point that I don't know that much about. But I would certainly, before going, make sure that I learn on it and that I be thoroughly knowledgeable and be able to direct on this question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Creedon, your number, please.
6, please.
Number 6. And here's your question. Over the next 3 years, or the term in office for all of you, should CCISD's arts and cultural enrichment programs be changed in any way? Why, how, and why?
The answer is yes. I think now more than ever, our arts and cultural enrichment programs are going to be needed to help with our resiliency that our students are going to need as they're coming off the back end of this pandemic. I would look for opportunities for our arts and enrichment programs to expand into other contests, into other regions, into other arts that we aren't doing presently, to give them some competition and give them exposure to the beauty of what CCISD students can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cottrell, your last number, please.
Sure. 11.
Number 11.
Thank you.
Individual school board members have no ability to influence district policy or practice except as a board at a call meeting. Why is this an important state policy?
Transparency. The community needs to know what they're discussing, and it's very important that we also include the community in those discussions. So for that transparency reason alone, that we have to make sure that everybody knows what's being discussed. So thank you.
Thank you. That ends the lightning round. Now it's time for bread and butter. This section will deal with the actual role, the bread and butter, if you will, of being a school board member. We'll have 2 rounds, 60-second responses, and each contested position will have its own question. We'll be starting with position 4 for this one, and Ms. Rander, we'll be beginning with you. And the first question in this round is as follows. CCISD's budget is about $380 million with about 5,000 faculty and staff and innumerable programs. As a trustee, when you're given a 400-page budget for the district, what is your process to determine if it's the best budget for the district?
Thank you. My first step that I would take is to look at the portion of it that includes the numbers and see what's the comparative to the current school year that we might be in versus the one that we're working on for the next school year. And then I would look to make sure if I know of areas that may have declined or there were any concerns over the current school year, I would look towards those to see if we are addressing them in any way. In a case like what we might be facing next year, I might look at opportunities for savings, as we did in 2011 when I was on the board in the last kind of fiscal crisis that the state and school public education went through, which was how can we, and that wasn't done alone, that was done with a community group, a group of citizens who came from the community and helped us with that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Larson, same question about your process.
Looking at this, when you look at the question, the first thing you think of is here's the amount of money, and should any part of it go down, any other part of it come up to balance out? But the reality here is we're running deficit spending. So my first thought when you see the budget, how can we make it better? And how can we be a better steward of the taxpayer dollars? So I'm going through looking for savings wherever possible to try to make that fit.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll move to position 5, District 5. Parizo, you'll be leading off this time. We often hear about Clear Creek Independent School District's fund balance. What is a fund balance, and why is it important to understand its purpose?
So the best part about being a new board member is that I will receive 10 hours of continuing education, and part of that will be about CCISD's fund balance. I'm not qualified to speak on it right now, but I'm sure I will be after the education that I will receive.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, what is a fund balance, and why is it important to understand its purpose?
The fund balance is basically the portion that the district has set aside. And those are the monies that we use for emergencies. We use those for anything like if there's a storm or natural disaster, and we have to get our schools up and running. So we tend to, as required by the state, keep at least 2 months of operating cash on hand. Because of our fund balance, our first rating, we've maintained a superior rating by the state for at least the last five to 6 years. So that's what the fund balance is.
Thank you. Now we'll move to at-large position A. Mr. Oditt, we'll be starting with you this time. Another important responsibility of the board is to assess the performance of the superintendent. What experience do you have in assessing senior management, and how does that experience translate to public education?
That's a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, I had the privilege to oversee over 1,100 personnel, including a number of senior officers. So I've had to review and provide feedback on performance, and also to provide guidance and vision on where we need to and how we continue to improve to ultimately meet the goals and objectives of the district. So also now since I've retired from the Coast Guard, I've also moved on. I'm now a senior vice president with the terminal company. So I've had the opportunity now to interact with the board of directors. So I have that understanding now, which is very similar to what we are. Where the trustee board is a board of directors for a company. So I have that interaction and understand how we need to maintain and remain within the budget. I understand how bonuses work. I know that was a hot topic recently. So I have a different perspective now, being in industry, and would bring that to the board as well.
Thank you. Mr. Cottrell?
Yes. So the experience that I have for this is I've served on a number of boards over the last 10 years, and we understand that we set those metrics based on the success of that strategic plan that you set forth with that. The trustees, one employee is the superintendent, and that superintendent needs to make sure that he's following that strategic plan. We want to make sure that as well, we have high levels of engagement with the teachers and the students in the district, so that as we are assessing his performance, we're able to make sure what's going on inside the schools themselves. We want to make sure we set clear goals with that superintendent, and we also want some measurable targets. So when you're really trying to figure out, is that employee doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they meeting those targets, and are they meeting the goals? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Creedon, same question.
Thank you. I have significant experience with assessing and evaluating senior management, both as a colonel in the United States Army and as one of about 1,000 executives within the ExxonMobil Corporation. So this is something that I've spent a large part of my adult life managing. And it starts with establishing jointly with the superintendent the goals for the next rating period, understanding what the superintendent's plans are to meet those goals, understanding what the barriers are to meeting those goals, and then helping the superintendent steward performance to those goals by giving real-time feedback based on PTA input and other out-of-board input to give him the opportunity to know where he's at on his journey and to make course corrections if required. And then at the end of the rating period, to sit down and see what was accomplished and hopefully say, well done. And if not, a recycle program. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, the same question, please.
Thank you. My experience with assessing senior management is varied. Starting with my own business, where I have over 55 people at one time, and complying with a federal contract with the Pentagon and the Air Force. I also lead as CEO of Human Rights Foundation, and also the assistant director of legal clinics for a law school in Arizona. Those separate functions are very indicative of my being able to assess senior management, such as the superintendent, which of course has to be a two-way street where I am listening to the person to find out what it is, what metrics are happening, what cooperation is needed in order to be able to comply and be able to assess them as adequate as it needs to be.
Thank you very much. We're ready for bread and butter round 2, and we'll be starting with position 5. Mr. Cunningham, you'll be leading off this time. And here's the question. The board as a whole is responsible for approving the superintendent's goals as well as assessing his progress toward meeting those goals. What 2 or 3 areas are most important components of that assessment?
Well, the 2 most important goals is, number 1, using our strategic plan. I've served on that strategic plan committee back in 2013. That's set up to give us our long-range planning over the next 5 years. And based on that strategic plan, the superintendent's performance goals, as well as the excellence of the students. So test scores are incorporated in that. Performance of teachers, performance of certain programs are also evaluated, and that's what we use to evaluate the superintendent's performance.
Thank you. Ms. Parizo, same question.
One of the most important areas of that assessment is student achievement. And I'm not just talking about grades and test scores, but how well our students are prepared for life after high school, whether it's going to college, which isn't for everyone, going into a career or a trade or into the military or directly into the workforce. We need to make sure those students are set up for success. We also need to evaluate how well we're planning for the future, financially and in terms of our education programs. Are we looking forward with what we're adding to our career and technical education? If we're not, then we are doing our students a disservice. And I would say those are the 2 most important areas, especially now.
Thank you very much. The next question is for at-large position A. We'll be starting with Mr. Cottrell. And here comes. If elected, what would you want your key board-related accomplishments to be? In other words, your legacy.
I would like that legacy to include that he was somebody that represented all 42,000 students and every citizen and every parent better than anybody before him had done. I'm very involved in this community, and I did that without getting elected, and I did it as a volunteer. So the legacy that I've already started is what I want to continue with and do it as a trustee. I want to be somebody that's remembered who was involved in the community. We have 200 nonprofits that the district works with, and I'm already involved with quite a few already, and I want to expand that. So I want people to remember me for being somebody who made a difference in the children's lives, made a difference in the community's lives, and was somebody who was able to make things happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Creedon, same question.
Thank you. There are 4 areas that I'd like to leave as my legacy as a board member if elected. I'd like to be known as the one that made sure that safety and health and welfare of all of our 42,000 students was maintained during his tenure. I don't want to read in the paper or see a horrible circumstance happen within our school district, and I want to know I've done everything in our power from a policy perspective to have prevented that. Second, I'd like to see teacher retention be above 90%. That means teachers want to be there. They want to stay there. They're given the resources to succeed, and our 42,000 have to benefit from it. Third, I want to be the envy of the nation for special services. I want people from Kansas and Nebraska and California to come to Houston, come to League City, come to Clear Lake and see how you do special services, be the envy. And finally, I want to be known as a district that took remote learning and embraced it and made it bread and butter for the district. Not because of the pandemic, but because in 20 years, it's going to be a necessary skill set. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, same question, please.
Yes, thank you. I would like to be remembered as a person who insisted in focusing on the success of the students and advocated for all of the students of CCISD, including those that are generally marginalized. And I want to be remembered also as a person who kept in mind the teachers who are the people who lead us into the brains of these children and the success that actually happens. So we have to know that they will be taken care of. The final point that I really want to be remembered as is that success only takes place when we believe on ourselves. And I want to be able to be inclusive of those that haven't been at this point.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oditt, same question.
Yes, I would like to actually have and establish a functional strategic plan and a process for that to happen, something that's enduring and that'll help you to set priorities and also make tough decisions. If you read the 2020 strategic plan right now, it's too aspirational. I don't know how the superintendent and his team could actually take that and implement it and measure it. So, you know, my experience, and I know Mr. Creedon will probably appreciate this, in the military, we use ends, ways, and means. So the end should be, we want to attract and retain teachers and top talent. What are the ways we're going to do that? How are we going to recruit them? How are we going to compensate them? And then what's the means that we're going to use in order to pay for that to happen? What are the resources we need? And when we don't have those resources, we need to go back and revisit that. And that same process should happen for infrastructure plan and so forth. And then we should have the superintendent develop a rubric that'll actually show how they're going to assess and show that they've accomplished that, just as we expect from the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to position 4. We'll be starting with Mr. Larson. The National School Board Association says that one qualification of a good school board member is that he or she is data savvy. Assuming that you are data savvy, what data is most important to you? What data is most important for you to have and why?
Well, as an engineer, I better be a data savvy or I'm kind of slump. With regard to the school, what I'm interested in is student growth from year to year. And you can measure that. Where do they start each grade year and where do they finish it? And that having that data in hand allows you to judge not only what the student has learned, but also it gives you a handle on the teaching staff and the institution as far as how well they're teaching. If you compare groups of students against each other and see who's growing and who's progressing as a unit.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rander, same question.
So I would be interested in campus data and how well campus is growing year to year. And then I would look within that campus, then I would drill down to student data, particularly, again, year-to-year growth and not necessarily a true test score, but the ability to learn, that there are learning gains and no losses. And within the student groups, you also want to be cognizant of what's going on with what we call special populations. And those are your different groups, whether it's African American, Asian, special ed, low socioeconomic. You want to know that each group, each student is growing. And that data is very important for us to make decisions, day to day and year to year decisions.
Thank you very much. And that completes the round called bread and butter. And we're now ready for the next lightning round. Ms. Parizo, we're going to start with you, but you also are the last person around as we come back around. So with that, these are 30-second responses, and I'd appreciate if you would pick a number between 1 and 20, please.
13.
13. And here it comes. Someone asks you if you favor cutting taxes, and if so, specifically, not generically, what would you cut from the CCISD budget?
That's a great question, actually. I'm always in favor of cutting taxes. I think our taxpayers are being asked to shoulder a lot, especially every single time we come to them asking to pass a bond. We've already approved a $300,000 down payment on the next bond out of the taxpayers' pockets. The first thing I would cut from CCISD's budget are these firms that scope out these bonds, because we have plenty of qualified professionals on our campuses to tell us what needs to be repaired and maintained.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, which number for you, please?
I'll take 10.
10. Here it comes. You receive a petition with 100 signatures demanding that all students have bus service to school regardless of the resident's proximity to a school. What's your response?
My response would be to, first of all, inform the superintendent of the petition that I received and ensure that he reaches out and meets with those groups. Also, take a look at our transportation in regards to the residents' proximity to see if we have an existing route or if we have buses that are close to that area.
Thank you. Ms. Rander, which number, please?
8.
Number 8. Here it comes. What are the 2 most important attributes for a school board member to possess to be successful?
I would say first, the ability to listen with discernment, and be able to listen to both sides of any issue that comes forward, which I've seen over the years. We sometimes we listen with our eyes, getting emails, and it's screaming that there's a problem, but then when we sit down and hear more and then let the district deal with it, it's not as bad as it had we saw it or heard about. And then probably the next is compassion.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, which number for you, please?
Number 5.
Number 5. Oh, coming up. A parent asks you, what is a school bond? What do you say?
It's a promise. It's a promise. It's a good one. It is a means of financing something that you can't pay for right now, and it's paying over time. The school will take out a loan essentially, and over time the parents will pay it back. Or taxpayers pay it back.
Thank you. Mr. Cottrell, what number would you like?
17.
17. Name 2 great things about Clear Creek ISD and why you chose those 2.
I would say 2 great things about CCISD is the teachers, and I think the teachers in CCISD are among the best in all the nation. The other great thing about CCISD, I think, are the volunteers. The volunteers within the community that come together to support it, the PTAs, the Chambers of Commerce, the Rotary, all of our nonprofits, communities and schools. We have a lot of great volunteers to support special needs, underprivileged kids, so those 2.
Thank you. Mr. Creedon, a number, please.
16,
Number 16.
mostly because I saw that it was available. Thank you.
Number 16. School boards assess district progress using formative and summative measures. What does this mean in plain English?
Did I say 16? I think I meant 6.
Educational jargon.
I'm going to pass on that one. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Montesinos, which number, please?
Let's try 7.
Number 7. School board elections should be nonpartisan. I'm distinguishing that from political. Those are 2 different dimensions. School board elections should be nonpartisan. Agree or disagree, and why?
Well, totally agree. It should be nonpartisan. And we have to keep in mind what the focus is. We really need to consider that we have to have the best interest of the students in mind. And that is the board does not have to be involved with partisan policies in order to be keeping in mind the students. So for me, I totally agree with them.
Thank you. Mr. Oditt, you're in the wonderful seat where you get 2 in a row.
Update number 8.
Number 8.
Already done.
Oh, that
It's
one's
already-
been taken.
That's already been taken. 9.
9 is good.
Since you're already here.
Number 9. A parent calls you because she says her son is being discriminated against. What do you do?
Well, I think Paige hit it on the head. Number 1, you listen. That's the first quality that I think you have to have. And then you show compassion, and then you call the superintendent, and you get the appropriate people involved. And you take every report seriously.
Thank you. And your next number?
10.
Number
called-
10 has
that
been
was called
taken.
11.
Number 11 is a winner. Pretend a company, a corporation, is considering moving to our area. The site selection agent asks you how good the schools in CCISD are. What's your response?
That's easy. I think that's a plant. So when I'm in the military, first thing you do is you look at the schools to see how good they are. So I would be able to speak from my personal experience, and I picked to live in this community because of schools and how great they are. And that's the reason why I want to be a trustee, to continue that and ensure that they continue to be great schools.
Thank you. Dr. Montesinos, a number from you, please.
What numbers are open?
1, 2, 3,
12?
4. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the number.
12?
Oh, 12.
Thank you.
The pandemic has brought the issue of students' mental and emotional wellness to school boards across the nation. What should CCISD be doing that perhaps it's not doing?
Well, mental health is a very important topic, and we must address it immediately and ongoing. So yes, it has been aggravated by this pandemic, but it doesn't mean that it was just a new topic. So we must be attentive to reading certain signs that are showing this mental health, and without stigmatizing the child. And we need to embrace the child as a whole, and that's a newness that I think CCISD needs to take care of, which would include the family and their surroundings.
Thank you. Mr. Creedon, a number from you, please.
6, please.
Number 6. Ready? All Clear Creek ISD teachers should be allowed to have firearms in the classroom. Agree or disagree, and why?
I completely disagree. I've spent 28 years in the military. Firearms are a tool. I'm highly trained and regrettably have had to use them. I don't think teachers should be armed. If a teacher wishes to be armed, then they should go through the Texas Peace Academy, spend the 6 months to learn how to be an off-duty police officer. Maybe that's a different story. I just don't think that's a good way to provide for our security. I think our security services will be are just fine, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cottrell, a number from you, please.
Number 3.
3. Should homeschooled students be allowed to participate in CCISD's extracurricular programs like athletics or marching band or the other?
If they're not registered in CCISD, then participating in CCISD programs should not be allowed. I believe that there are certain organizations that are set up to accommodate homeschool kids to compete with other homeschool kids. And maybe they form a consortium of some sort to then compete. But the students in CCISD need to compete with students in CCISD.
Thank you. Larson, number please.
Number 1.
Good old number 1. Here it comes. In Texas's A through F accountability system, is an A school better than a B school? Why or why not?
I I would say it is. If I had to send my kid to school and I had a choice, I would go to your school. But that's based on rating the student accomplishment. And we all know that it's entirely impossible for an A school to get, they're just simply be better situated in the community. But generally, an A school is probably better than.
Thank you. Ms. Rander, a number from you, please.
4.
Number 4. Oh, here it comes. School board member is expected to be an advocate for public education. What exactly does that mean to you?
At the local level, it means speaking up for things that are going on in the district and supporting decisions that are going on, whether it's something that's directly a vote or that the district is doing. At the state level, it means participating in legislative activities during and off session. We're currently in a session, and then I've had experience, and I do believe in doing this also at the federal level.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, your number, please.
18.
18. Here it comes. Thank you. Over the years, Clear Creek ISD has received commendations for excellence from the board level to every aspect of teaching, learning, and operations. How exactly would you contribute to sustaining that level of excellence?
In order to sustain that level of excellence, you have to collaborate with each other. We call ourselves a team of 8, so we work closely and incorporate our superintendent into our team. We follow our operating procedures to the letter, and we basically follow all of the guidelines of being a trustee. As Ms. Rander stated earlier, advocating for public education, etc.
Thank you. Ms. Parizo?
2.
Number 2. Thank you. Here it comes. And here's the question. Texas requires that school trustees should participate in professional development each year. What training would you need to have to become a better trustee?
I'm very grateful that Texas has this requirement because the laws are changing constantly. But most importantly, I think the first bit of training that I'll need is regarding funds and financing. I don't have a finance background. I have an advocacy background, a communications background, and a legal background. What I would like to see is for us to get away from the Texas Association of School Boards training, which tends to be one-sided, and look into other venues to train our trustees.
Thank you. And finally, it's time for our closing comment. These are 60-second closing comments. They will be in the reverse order of the opening comments, which means we will begin with the at-large position A. And Mr. Oditt, please, your closing comment.
Great. No, thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this event this evening. I will say, because I'll go back to one of the questions that was asked, because my wife was an art teacher for 17 years, I don't want to disenfranchise all the art teachers. When we say STEM, we should probably throw the A in there and call it STEAM, because arts really gives us that innovation and creativity. So I learned something new tonight with all the great questions and all the great answers as well. So I think that is a quality, as we mentioned. You need to be able to listen. I'm a good listener. You need to listen to parents, listen to the chamber, PTA, as well as listen to the other board members and the employees. So I also mentioned that, I chose CCISD not once but twice when I was assigned here initially over 3 years ago, and then again when I retired. Because of its reputation, I want to continue to ensure that CCISD maintains that reputation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Montesinos, your closing comment.
Thank you. To those that much is given, much is required. And I think that as a person that is so thankful that the Lord has been able to grace me with that possibility, that it's my turn now to give. My experience, my education, I will put them all on the table to make sure that that I give my best to the CCISD and the students. I have lived in the area for 34 years, have raised 3 children in the CCISD program. I am very proud of them. They have, my oldest has 2 degrees in engineering, and the other ones are following along. So I am very involved with the community, have led, and I'm part still now of leading a nonprofit charity organization. To me, it's very important that we include everyone that is in the community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Creedon, have your concluding comment.
Certainly, I'd like to thank the Chamber for a very challenging forum. I really got a lot out of it, as well as I'm sure the other candidates. I would like the audience to know that, and remember that I'll be an advocate for children. I'm going to focus on the best interest of all 42,000 to the best of my abilities, to create a public education that's fiscally responsible. As a board member, I know my duties are primarily as goal setting and policy making and an evaluation as we track along that. And hopefully in the last hour plus that you have seen a glimpse into that I'm visionary and strategic, honest and transparent. Let's face it, formulative and summative. I didn't know what that is, and I told you that, but I can assure you I'll know what it is by tomorrow morning. Responsible and accountable, I own that one, and hopefully a long-term creating value for the district. But that's my story. I want to help write the story of 42,000 students. We've got awesome teachers, got an awesome ability to shape the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cottrell.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Freedman, Dr. Peter, Clear Lake Chamber, and happy birthday again to TJ. So again, I've lived in this area for this community for over 35 years. And as a father of 3 children in the district, I have a passion for helping education and helping the community. It's my commitment to public education and to support a thriving community that we live in. You need to be in this race for the right reason. I've been in this for 10 years, again, without being asked or being told, because I volunteered. I want to continue with that volunteering within the community in this position as trustee at large. I want to collaborate with all 42,000 students and every citizen in the boundaries of CCISD, every campus, every teacher, and everybody who wants to be involved. They know that they can count on me to represent them well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Parizo, your concluding comment.
Thank you all for hosting this forum. And again, happy birthday, TJ. Hope it's a wonderful one. The most important quality that a trustee can have is empathy. And that's what's different about me. I know what it's like to be frustrated. I know what it's like to want change. The first bullet point on the Board of Trustees mission statement is to be an advocate for all of the students in the district. And that's what I pledge to do. I take that incredibly seriously. Every student deserves a high quality education, and every student deserves to be set up for success. We are the guardians of the public trust, and we need to make sure that we are ensuring transparency in all our decision making and in our finances. I'm a communicator by nature and by trade. And I also have an extensive background in enterprise technology that will help open up our data so our taxpayers can see where their funds are going, and so that our parents and our students can understand CCISD policy and find it easily. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, your concluding statement, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight. I'd also like to thank I-45 News for broadcasting and putting us in the homes of all of their viewers as well. As a father of 2 boys that have matriculated through CCISD, one is a current freshman at Clear Springs High School, as well as an adult daughter, which makes me a grandparent of an elementary aged granddaughter in the district. I have a vested interest. My service over the 14 years, as stated before, as a parent, a coach, a volunteer, I have that self before, or that service before self attitude. And I'm proud of my time on the board advocating for reducing overcrowding, advocating for the expansion of our magnet programs, and increasing teacher salaries.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rander, your concluding comment, please.
Thank you again to everyone who's hosted and watching and listening at home. I appreciate this opportunity to let you know that I am in the community and this community is in me. For every success and challenge that our students encounter on a day-to-day basis, I'm there cheering them on, and I'm cheering them to do better when they need that. I've learned this through the years from both my parents and my grandparents and the parents around me in my community. My decisions are based purely on what I know to be the best opportunities for every Clear Creek ISD student and staff member. I have not only the experience as a trustee to make the best decisions, but my years of professional experience in the public sector have shown me that making decisions now are what make for the best outcomes later. Every action brought to us has been carefully reviewed and thought out. And when it isn't, when we as a board have too many questions, it goes back to the drawing board until we can get it right.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, your concluding question. Comments, please.
First, thanks again to the chamber and the doctor and Cindy and everybody here who helped put this on. Great to be here and really nice. You know, CCISD last time I checked, I think was the 29th largest school district in the state of Texas. If you look at the school districts that are about that size, it's a standout. The quality is there. And we have a lot to be proud of in this area. I worked for Mission Control for over 25 years. And yeah, I think those two things don't get. I think we have a great community because of the assets we have in it. And the parents have demanded a quality school system. I hope to contribute to that and to ensure that we have a great school system for years to come.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for your participation tonight and for responding to the questions. It was a wonderful evening, and I appreciate all of you a great deal. I'd also like to thank all of the folks at home for tuning in and staying with us to learn more about the candidates, and I certainly encourage you to get out to vote. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Winchell.
Thank you, Dr. Freedman. This does conclude the CCISD Board of Trustees Candidates Forum. You can read more information on the candidates on ccisd.net. Before we go and before you tune out, I'd like to acknowledge two people in the audience that I didn't acknowledge earlier. The first is Bob Davey, who is this year's chairman of the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. And also in the audience today, we do have Dr. Matt Robinson. And Dr. Matt Robinson is a member of the State Board of Education. Thank you for being here. Again, if you'd like more information on the candidates, please go to ccisd.net. Thank you for tuning in today, being an informed voter. The Clear Creek Independent School District's Board of Trustees will hold a regular election for the following trustee positions on Saturday, May 1st, 2021. On the ballot are District 4, Jeffrey Larson and Paige Rander. District 5, Jay Cunningham, Keith Esthay, and Christine Parizo. At large position A, Jonathan Cottrell, Michael Creedon, Marlene Montesinos, and Kevin Oditt. Thank you all for running for office. We appreciate your commitment to public service. Early voting for the May 1 election begins on April 19 and ends on April 27th. 4 early voting locations: Clear Creek Education Support Center at 2425 East Main Street in League City. Also, Clear Creek ISD Learner Support Center at 2903 Falcon Pass near Clear Lake High School. Clearbrook High School at 4607 FM 2351 in Friendswood. And finally, Creekside Intermediate at 4320 West Main Street on the west side of League City. Early voting, early voting times are April 19th through the 23rd from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. April 24th, 26th, and 27th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Once again, our thanks to each of our candidates for participating. One more round of applause. Thank you to our sponsors, City of Nassau Bay and Texan Bank. Thank you to our host, the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, our friends at I-45 Now, TJ Alds, our moderator, Dr. Glenn Freedman, and most importantly, thank you all for joining us and for being engaged. Have a good evening.